Hello, welcome to Tweet the Leader in You, where we chat about realistic leadership theories. On today's episode, it's just the crew. What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good.
Awesome. So we're at the table today to talk about what makes an adaptable leader.
Hot topic.
Hot topic on today's topic, right? I think that this is going to be a good discussion.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
But Rex, I want to start with you on why are you adaptable as a leader?
Well, let's define. Let's step back.
Let's define leadership at first. Yeah.
Right. So I would say adaptable. Like a leader is like someone who can manage, who can take control.
Yep.
But also humble.
Yes.
Also humble. You know, there's some leaders, that can be humble. They can lead a person or a community or a group.
Right.
But they can't be humble, or they can't come on the same level as an employee. So I would say adaptable leader is being able to adapt to whether it's culture or whether it's in the workplace. That I honestly feel as if being adaptable or defining my meaning of what is adaptable leader, it's being able to change or be able to come to a level that it's suitable for the employee or the workplace.
That's a really good thought. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, just to add on to that, I suppose, in terms of like adaptation, they have to be comfortable in multiple situations. Be able to put people in places where they succeed. I think a lot of times leadership is being able to see things before they are set in place and give yourself a kind of advantage in that way. So, being able to have an eye for a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And then putting people and putting things in place.
Yeah.
And knowing that there's going to be challenges.
Right.
So that's what the adaptation comes in is when there's those challenges and there are those problems that arise. You're able to, change your plan or change your ideas to fit and form to the problems that come up.
And adjust, like good stuff. And all of you are correct, because in leadership you have to, I don't like to be called a boss. And I feel like boss is like a more of a controllable way, but a leader is someone who listens, who guides, who visualize where the team is going together.
Yeah.
A collective group.
A collective group.
Right.
But it's also an individual who is passionate to move forward. Moving forward in different ways where they describe their self to grow, to develop, and also to think about ways that they've never imagined themselves. Leaders are out-of-the-box thinkers.
Right.
They allow themselves to go beyond the status quo or not to allow others to dictate who they are and whose they are and where they're going. And I think that as we continue to grow in leadership, we have to understand that there are some ways that people will judge our leadership.
Of course.
There will be people who will judge the way how we feel. There will be people who will judge the way how we make decisions.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
And that's really okay. What do you think about this when making decisions as a leader? What do you think about that?
Just to go off what you said, I guess, I think it can be a good thing as well, like having those differing opinions, because that's where you learn and you grow off people. Because even the leaders themselves, don't know everything.
Right.
Like there's obviously, different opinions, different cultures, different,
Right.
everyone's constantly learning. So I think good leaders also, and adaptable leaders also listen themselves. They're not just the person speaking, which kind of goes to what you were saying before. But so being able to learn and listen themselves and then use that in a positive.
Why is it hard to listen?
Why is it hard to listen? Gee, you putting me on the spot.
No, because Rex, you don't listen sometimes.
I don't.
And I think we're all in the same boat that sometimes
Right.
we don't listen to people.
Right.
Why don't we listen? Do you feel that it's ego, or do you feel that...
I feel ego, and also I
ego.
feel as if we're stuck in our ways too.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
you can't tell me what to do because I already know what to do. So, I'm not gonna listen to. But it's bad. It's a bad habit.
Yeah.
But again, we have to learn how to again, learn and listen, you know?
Be humble.
Be humble, exactly.
And sometimes humility is humility is a really jokey thing to do sometimes. Not jokey, but it's just it's jokey sometimes to do. But that brings back to my mind my saying, reflecting is very important.
Absolutely.
Because it helps with that. It helps to showcase why you're doing it and all that good stuff. Josh, what do you think? Now we're shifting now that we talked about leadership, we talked about being open-minded, we talked about the emotions, effects of leadership. But when it comes down to adaptability is a hard thing to do. And I spoke about this actually earlier this week when I presented 2 presentations to a school back home in Bahamas and also at work professionally. Talking about adaptability helps you to change your behavior, and adaptability helps you to adjust to something that's bigger and better. When you think about adaptability, what do you feel?
I don't know. In terms of in terms of
that-
leadership,
Or in general as a person?
I think it's hard. I definitely think it's hard. I think a lot of prejudice can come, if you,
Judgment?
yeah, if you don't what I'm trying to say is it's hard to learn how to adapt. I think, and when you do learn to listen to other people,
Right.
and you learn different perspectives, then because I think you get stuck thinking that you know one way to solve solutions, but learning and listening to other people's challenges, like we're talking about in previous episodes about
Right.
overcoming obstacles.
Absolutely.
I think that's really what adaptation is just gaining lessons, gaining life lessons,
Right.
and then using those in your own life.
Applying those to your own life is it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes to apply
Absolutely.
things to your own life. Do you feel that?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, for me, adapting when it comes down, I'm gonna use when I came from the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Adapting
To a different climate.
a different culture.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about that. It's honestly back home we address persons as their last name.
Yes,
We
madam,
say,
sir.
okay, sir, madam, and Mr. and Mrs. The last names, their last names. And then when I came here, it was oh, Robert or Sarah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was calling my professor Robert, and I felt awkward, But again, that comes with adaptability of learning, and we're growing with the culture. So pretty much, I was a bit at ease. Honestly, I was I'm calling my professor, right?
Yeah.
I was will he take that as disrespectful? And I had to learn and grow with that. And then the weather, the weather in the Bahamas is totally different from what it is in Canada, right?
Yeah.
So the cold and. When I first saw snow, I was in flip-flops and a t-shirt and short pants, and I know they was wow, this boy is crazy. And then I had to adapt to you have to wear a winter jacket, you have to do this, you have to do that. So again, it all comes down to adaptability and being able to adjust with the culture.
Do you think being vulnerable is a good way to become adaptive?
Absolutely, for sure. I would say that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Being vulnerable. In some ways, it helps in a lot of situations for sure.
But Templeton, for you, how was it for you? What do you define as being adapted, being able to adapt? What do you define that as for you in your personal life?
My personal life, I feel to adapt is just to make room for growing. That's just me on the whole, and that's just simple way of saying it's a cliche, but it's real. Making room for your mistakes, and also making room for you to learn from the mistake in order for you to move forward, in order for you to learn where you're going and all that good stuff. And I've adapted so much in my life personally, in shifting with the podcast itself and having to adapt and learn different trends about what do we want to bring to the podcast, and
Right.
how do we want to adapt, to change the set, to change the people who are on it, to change,
Right.
like, there are a lot of amazing people who came through the podcast
Right.
on the team, but adapting that they have left and I had to bring more new people. I had to adapt to learning other people
Right.
and all that good stuff. And I have conversations with my producer about having those about choosing the team,
Right.
and all that good stuff, and choosing the right ones. And so we had conversations. And sometimes it's hard to adapt and say, okay, I want to shift now to another level.
Right.
And knowing when it's right to adapt to something. I think adaptability doesn't happen overnight.
That's a
Right.
great point too in terms of adaptation. It's like when should you, like in terms of if there's something in your life that you need to change, or you don't see the patterns,
Right.
in terms of like growth, like even self growth.
Right.
Yeah.
And Templeton, for you. So I have a question for you. I know you asked
You
me
know,
last
put
question.
that's enough. Put me enough, 'cause this is a round
This
table.
right.
It is a
And I'm
round
putting you
table
on the hot
discussion,
spot. But you say adapting. So we all like COVID. We had to adapt. We had to adapt to online learning. We had to adapt to Zoom calls. How did you
Take it on.
adapt? Both of you. So how did you adapt to online learning, whether Zoom calls, Skype? How did we all adapt to it?
I would say personally, I like technology. I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of learning virtually. I think it's very helpful for me. A lot of persons they saw it as an effect
A negative thing.
on a negative end. That's to each his own. I have to respect that. But you have to have passion for technology. You have to have a urge to want to learn technology, and that's what I love to do. And because I'm a marketing student, marketing students, that's their ongoing job is to be tech savvy and to be digital, so to call it. So it was easy for me to adapt, but it was hard for me to adapt with the schedules, like, because I know that there was a time where I was working in that class,
Right.
and then sometimes it was like me going to my office and listening to my lecture at the same time
Right,
as
right.
I'm doing work and all that good stuff. And so like I had to adjust into it, and then I said to myself, like, I said, okay, Tyler, you need to like, adapt and shift now to evening classes. As much as you don't like evening classes, that will be very preferable for you right now. Or sometimes I'll do it at 12 o'clock because I do my lunch for an hour at 12. And so I would actually just listen to my class or go to make sure there's a lecture that's starting at 12 to give me that time to just eat lunch and listen to my class, and I wouldn't feel like I'm being unbalanced. But no, it was hard at the beginning because I must say I had to get more tech savvy
Right.
with learning the different. I've never used Zoom so much in my life, and being adapted to that system and being adapted to other systems such as Teams,
Right.
Microsoft Teams, and Riverside. We use Riverside for the podcast. Thank goodness for Riverside.
Right.
Riverside. I'm not doing a promo for Riverside, but I think that it's really those type of systems that allows us to continue to transform, continue to build our lives, so that we don't have to stay stuck,
Right.
or something. I think that adaptability allows us to get unstuck from different situations of life, and it gives us that opportunity to say, hey, there is a way.
Right.
There is a way. It's just up to you now to make a way.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah, like, I guess just to kind of go off what you were saying, like, for me it was similar. Like, I found online learning actually easier. Like, I liked in compared to classes. But I think I definitely learned and adapted to, like, wasn't the best with computers, best with programs and stuff like that, but I definitely learned through being forced to do it. So in terms of that, I definitely had to adapt. But I think also in terms of my personal life, like when we had to go to school, we had to physically be there. You know, you have this routine where you wake up in the morning, you're there, and you come back, and you whatever. Whereas when we were doing it virtually, it was, you know, you were comfortable being in your bed while you're in class or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So I think in terms of being able to adapt and find new routines, find new healthy things for me to express myself or to, you know, release stress or whatever, I think that was something I'd adapt to. So, you know, learning how, like, I would go for runs, or I would, you know, every once in a while go to a coffee date with my friends or
Right.
something like that, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just being able to,
Yeah. And
yeah.
it's kind of funny that you say that because when it came down to adapting for school, I was so comfortable staying online. I said,
Right.
I don't want to see humans anymore. I
Yeah.
literally don't want to go back to Mount St. Vincent University
Right.
campus. Like I adapted to staying in my own space. But what I've done was during that time, I made sure that I kept my social life more balanced. So I would actually go to different cafes. So what I did was I wrote like 15 to 20 cafes
Oh, that's that
that I
much.
wanted to visit around Halifax that I wanted to do schoolwork at.
Right.
And I got the opportunity to visit a little bit and with friends as well, and just gaining that opportunity to be out in public, but also looking at a different lens of how to do work remotely, and like I say, the technology of that way. And so it's really important when it comes down to adaptability. The way our society is changing on a daily basis, from employment to educational wise, and just to other different social issues around the world. It's hard sometimes to adapt to societal views. And now touch a bit about COVID. There's a lot of people who it was hard for persons to adapt to taking the booster, the
vaccine.
vaccination and everything.
Right.
And so like that was like a hard thing for people to adapt to. And now that we're actually going to this new normal, like next on Monday, like on
The
the
21st.
21st
Yeah.
of March, we're actually going into vaccination passes not being in existence. And then March 21st, we're hopefully going into no mask. And so we're adapting now to a newer model that we were already used to.
Right.
But we had to actually change our life a little bit for 2 years.
Right.
And so it was hard. So now people are like, I'm scared
Yeah.
to actually go out there and take my mask off.
Right.
But of course, you have, and this is where it comes down to adaptability.
I think
Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, I think it also comes back to just we're talking about before in terms of vulnerability, because I think a lot of people are scared to change. They're afraid to change. They're afraid
absolutely.
of new things. But if you learn how to appreciate and you learn how to just, adapt, it becomes easier. And not being afraid and just taking chances and knowing that, you're going to take risks and chances and stuff isn't going to work out and you're going to have, issues and problems that arise. But if you, just have a positive attitude about it, then, you can adapt.
Wow.
That's cool.
What are your thoughts for the day that you want to let people know before we end this episode? What are your thoughts, your end thoughts that you want to encourage people moving forward with adaptability?
One of my thoughts. Just adapt. I mean, I know I can't use the word adapt.
Yeah, it's hard to
Adapt.
But like adapt, Every day is new. Every day we're growing, we're changing, and just go with the flow,
Yeah, take challenges as they come,
for
and
sure.
don't be afraid to do it.
And adapt.
Yeah. What did you do?
Yeah, just like I was saying before, in terms of, and what Rex was saying, every day there's challenges and there's obstacles you have to leapfrog. But I think a lot of it comes back to mindset. If you have a positive mindset and you have a vision of what the reality of the world is, that there's things that are going to happen that you have no control over.
Right.
If you understand that you can have influence on your life even though you don't have influence on the things that affect you, then you can make your life easier in that way.
That's
That's
right.
cool.
That's right. And I think that's a good way to end off this episode. If you're willing to change, you're going forward. If you're willing to adjust, you're going forward. If you're willing to make the difference, you are going forward. But if all that needs to happen is that you need to adapt. Adaptability. Thank you so much for coming on this episode, and we look forward to the next. See you soon.